On Nightline, and an opportunity tonight to talk to, the new boy on the block, Luke Bona, who's down here in Melbourne, meeting up with the 3AW component of his overnight Australia.
Yeah.
And he's with us tonight.
Hello. Thank you for making me feel so welcome, Philip.
Good to see you, Luke.
Good to see you guys too. Thank you for having me.
It's been a baptism of fire.
Oh, yes, it has. A lot of 3AW's listeners were hell bent on hating me, but I think I'm getting there. Now they just loathe me.
So there's a lot that love you too.
Yeah, I know. It's going well. It's really interesting because the program, because it is all over Australia, we get to talk to a little lady called Ivy who lives on a sugarcane farm north of Cairns. Yes. And we get to talk to people in Melbourne about Moomba this weekend and everything in between. It's fascinating.
Yes. And you do it well. Luke, where did you start in radio? Let's go back to...
Way back? Well, I started at 2GB in Sydney when I was 16, and I was in school. They used to call it fifth form, year 11. And I got a job as an office boy delivering mail. You know, this is before fax machines and emails and all that. And used to run around Sydney with envelopes, and 2GB back then was owned by Fairfax, and he used to run up to Broadway to the big office and Max Such and deliver his mail, and then you'd run here and you'd run there.
Did you love radio as a kid?
Oh, I grew up, yeah. My parents were huge consumers of radio and talk radio, and I grew up with it, and I loved radio. I loved the radio that had a conversation going on, and I always did. And so I was a frustrated musician, and I wanted to be a sound engineer. So I applied for a job at a radio station, thinking I'd be a sound engineer. And I got caught up at 2GB in the late 70s, where they were introducing talkback radio, and I just fell in love with it.
Who were the names on air?
Okay, well, Jimmy Hannon did mornings. Yeah. Breakfast was Brian Bury. Yeah. Now, my first panel operating job, I was put in charge of the great Dita Cobb. She was my first presenter.
She was marvellous.
Yes.
And there was a saying that she was famous for being famous, but she was so generous, and she had an hour and a half in the afternoon, and that was my first panelling job. And it doesn't get better than that, does it?
She was sort of Australia's Zsa Gabor, wasn't she?
They were best friends.
Yeah.
Whenever Phyllis Diller came to town, or Zsa Gabor, they came in to see Dita, and I got to meet these wonderful people. And then I looked after Mickey de Stoop, and then I left 2GB in 1980. I thought it was pretty much time for me to leave the day they sacked me, and
well, it's pretty well the right time to go.
I felt that the time was right.
Yeah.
And then I went to a little country town called Young, which is in the southwest of New South Wales. It's where they grow all the cherries. And I worked at 2LF, and that's where Ray Warren started. There's a lot of people started at 2LF Young, and that's where I started the radio broadcasting career.
Have you done much TV through the years, Luke?
No, I've got a head for radio.
So from Young, where did you went back to Sydney?
No, went to Bathurst. Went to 2BS in Bathurst, and then I went back to Sydney 2000, and I was at 2GB till 2012, and then at TUE in Sydney.
Right. Okay.
Oh, 2CC in Canberra for 6 months.
Gee, you've moved around a bit, haven't you?
You've got to, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. Now, overnight, has that been on the cards for a long time? Or have you been doing fill-in, or what until then?
I'd done some fill-in work at TUE, and I was doing the drive program on 2CC. And then the opportunity came up to do the overnight program, and the reason I said yes, and Melbourne wasn't in the equation back then.
No.
It was Sydney, Brisbane regional stations.
Right.
I had no idea about Melbourne. And but I liked the idea of being able to talk to regional Australia and Brisbane and Sydney. I just loved the idea of doing that. And talking to Australians and finding out what they do.
You know, we're going back in time now to the origins of radio, which was the Macquarie Broadcasting Network, the major broadcasting network that carried all the big game shows, the big quiz shows of Davey and Dyer, the General Motors Hour. This is going back into the history of the thing, which was all national.
That's right, it was. And my mum worked at 2GB when it was in Phillip Street in Sydney, and she was a sales secretary. And Jack Davey leaned over her shoulder one day to take a phone call, and while he was on the phone, he did a doodle, and it was a stick figure of a man playing golf. And he finished his phone call, and Mum said, "Can I keep that?" And he said yes, and he signed it, and I've got it.
Oh,
I've still got it. It will stay with me.
What a marvellous memento.
What a keepsake that
Oh,
is.
that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
Now, what about the sacrifices of doing midnight to dawn and trying to adjust your sleeping patterns?
Well, the sleep is it's a hard one, and there are plenty of people listening now who do shift work, but they do maybe 4 weeks on, and then they change again, and then they change again. Look, you've just got to put heavy curtains on, put some earplugs in, and hope for the best.
And can you?
No.
No.
It's a struggle.
So when is the sleeping pattern? Is it, say, 6 o'clock at night? Or?
No, I come home and I get home about 6:30, and I'll have a cup of tea and a piece of toast with my missus, the Minister for War and Finance, as we call her.
Yeah.
And then I'll have an hour and a half, then I'll go about my day, and then I'll have another sleep from 2 till 8.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you do get a bit there.
You get a bit there, yeah.
And how big is your family? How many children do you have?
Well, I've sired 2, raised 6 through step situations.
Stepchildren,
Yeah, and that was interesting. But I've got 2, Jacob and Holly. Jacob's 24 on the 12th of March, and Holly's 19. She finished school last year, and she's on her way. And then my partner, she has 2 children. So yes.
Who's the health fanatic?
That's Storm,
Right.
and that's her real name. This is the 19-year-old who's studying medicine at university. And you've been listening?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, she's mad. And she's a pain because she's onto everything. Everything you get out of the cupboard, she'll tell you exactly how many kilojoules and how much fat and how much better you can be doing. And she makes these smoothies.
You're talking about the smoothies.
With the NutriBullet thing.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And it makes they're very good. It makes a lot of noise. But that's how come I was across the contaminated berry thing, because she pours these berries into the soy milk and zzz, and off it goes. She's an absolute health fanatic. She runs and she walks and she lifts weights. She has a bar that goes across the door of the kitchen, and she does chin-ups. As I know.
Very good, though.
She's keen.
Strong.
She's keen.
Now, what does Luke Bona do away from the microphone?
I love my music and my,
What do you play? What
I
instrument?
play a number of instruments, drums, guitar, piano. But my Nikki, she plays the trumpet and the cornet and the flugelhorn, and we love big band swing, which is how we met. We met playing in a band in 1973.
Yeah.
We went to school together, my partner and I.
Right.
I used to carry her trumpet case to school.
So who were your favourites? Was it Miller or later?
Miller. Look, my favourite musician of all time is Nat King Cole.
Oh, mine too.
And I'll tell you why. The voice, the Velvet Honey voice, just gets me.
Piano.
But his musicianship, his piano playing, and the Nat King Cole trio, which was all instrumental, he was a genius. And you know, you think of people like Elvis. Well, the Nat King Coles and the Chuck Berrys opened all that, you know. And Nat King Cole would be my favourite. He's arranging his version of Autumn Leaves.
Glorious.
You know, see, this is the sort of music I like.
I love it. I love it. Luke Bona on air tonight at midnight across Australia.
On the wireless.
On the wireless, on the air and in the chair.
Yeah, you out there, me there in the chair. Clock on the wall says we're having a ball.
Going everywhere, Pally.
Here's some stacks of wax and sounds that are around. We're a little bit closer to the ground, and if you're out there on the roads, keep left.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Good to meet you, mate.
God from the charts, but not from our hearts. I've just finished reading the John Brennan story.
Lukey boy. He used to call me Lukey boy.
Good man. I've never met him. I'd love to meet him.
Oh, you'd love him.
The godfather, the king of Sydney radio behind the scenes.
Yep. He took 4 stations to #1.
Wonderful man.
2SM, 2GB, 2UE. What was the other one? But yes, John Brennan.
No, I've never heard him.
Lukey boy, good to see you. He would say, wonderful man, and he guided me from 2000 to 2012.
Try and get the book. It's a good read. If you love him and obviously Sydney radio.
You might be in the book.
No, I'm not.
No, he's not.
I'm really disappointed. Very disappointed.
Okay, so I would be too. Luke, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll hear you tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Luke Bona.
Bye.